Well, the University of Michigan is taking heat tonight after a department chair pens a column about Republicans described as ugly and full of hatred. The column was headlined, "Why I Hate Republicans." So where does the university stand on this one? Trace Gallagher has more in a Kelly file investigation. Trace?
Megyn, the communications professor is Susan Douglas, and she began her article with, quote, "I hate Republicans," but she now says that's not indicative of how she feels. She was simply starting with a rhetorical flourish, you know, to drive home the point of how politically divided Americans have become. The rest of her statements are a little harder to explain away, like this one, quoting, "I can't stand the thought of having to spend the next 2 years watching Mitch McConnell, John Boehner, Ted Cruz, and Darrell Issa, or any of the legions of other blowhards denying climate change, thwarting immigration reform, or championing fetal personhood." She goes on to say that, quote, "My tendency is to blame the Republicans more than the Democrats, which may seem biased, but history and psychological research bear me out. We, however, had a difficult time finding the psychological research that says Republicans are bad." The article, as you might imagine, didn't sit well with many in the GOP, especially the senior Republican on the University of Michigan's Board of Regents, who says the article, quote, "expresses and condones hatred toward an entire segment of individuals in our society based solely on their political views." Now, the professor acknowledges she once worked for a Republican who she adored and says she hopes her students didn't get the wrong idea, saying, quoting again, "I especially regret any suggestion I may have conveyed that some students are not welcome or would find a hostile environment in my classrooms." The college itself simply says the professor's opinions are not the university's opinions. Megyn.
I don't know how the students could have had that impression. Trace, thank you.
What?
Joining me now for more, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who is also the host of Huckabee right here on the Fox News Channel. Governor, good to see you.
Great to see you.
I don't know why the Republican students in her class would have any sense of animus.
Where would they get that?
And she said she didn't mean the sentiment, even though the first line of the piece is, well, here it is, I hate Republicans.
She hates Republicans. She thinks they're vile. They're filled with intolerance. But her attitude is one of tolerance and respect for diversity. This is what is so funny about the radical left. They can't even see themselves in the mirror and recognize what they see. You know, I don't hate her. I don't hate any Democrat. I don't hate anybody, period. No one that I can think of do I hate. I feel sorry for her.
Well, that's not what she says.
Her.
She says, according to researchers.
Yes,
okay?
researchers.
Unsighted researchers. It's like Paul Begala. The two core dimensions of conservative thought, these are the two core dimensions. Resistance to change and support for inequality. That is you to a T. She's got your number.
Yeah. You know, I tell you what, her research probably consists of she and 3 other people sitting around Starbucks sipping lattes and deciding that they are a research group.
What do you think? You agree? Yes, you too? Done.
Done. That's it. That's research.
It's so closed-minded. I mean, it's really ridiculous, and it's offensive. And the problem is these Republican students are going to have to go in, what few there may be on the campus, and sit in her communications class and know that she, quote, hates them, that now, she says it twice, now we hate them back. And then she talks about her loathing.
One of the things that she points out, she says that Republicans are hateful people and intolerant because they believe something. I always thought that's what we were supposed to do.
Stupid things, though.
It's called convictions.
It's denying climate change, thwarting immigration reform, championing fetal personhood. That's the stupid stuff she says makes her hate you.
You know, I will confess that I do believe that every human being has intrinsic worth and value. I don't think there's any such thing as a disposable or expendable human being. I have respect for the kid with Down syndrome as much as I do with the captain of the football team. I'm sorry she doesn't elevate every human life to the level of equality. I'm sorry she doesn't feel that way. I do. Now, if that makes me a hater because I love all people equally and don't pick sides.
That is your resistance to change. That's your resistance to change talking.
That's it.
Then she goes on to say, this is just a brief review of Republican rhetoric that justifies her position. She talks about how Fox News, she's a big fan, needless to say.
Send her a hat.
She says Rush Limbaugh's, she's getting one, Rush Limbaugh's hate speech. The attempts, the GOP's endless campaign to smear the Clintons over Whitewater and Monica Lewinsky. And she goes on and on from there.
You know, I don't remember that it was just the Republicans who were saying things about what was going on at the Clinton White House. It was a lot of the press. And last time I checked, and believe me, I've had more than my share of dealings with the press, they aren't typically Republicans and they don't wear those Fox hats when they go out reporting a story.
How about the attacks on Republicans by some very prominent figures like Bill Maher and others who are constantly saying really vile things about certain prominent Republican figures?
You know, some of the things said about me I can't even discuss with you on this. In fact, Megyn, I wouldn't even discuss with you off camera. They're so vile.
Are you talking about the way I introduced you a couple weeks ago? That was an accident.
Listen, it's the best publicity I've had in years. Thank you.
Great to see you, Governor.
Great to see you.